So, as you had mentioned, you defined each of the layers as body, mind, intellect, and spirituality. Body, of course, is senses. Mind is emotions. The intellect is the thoughts and ideas. Spirituality, we're saying we're trying to transcend all of them, right? In this particular scenario, we're not yet taking it to that highest point. When we say spiritual, we think of, again, it's the intellect that is educated by the Shastras. So that becomes the guidelines. What would Shastras say in dealing with this? That's apart from what we may think is right and wrong, right? So in this case, the 4 personalities will have different responses to each one of them. Let me know when we're live streaming so I can... Oh, we're already live. Yeah. Okay. So I'm speaking to Chitrakoot if they're there. We just started reflecting on the questions that were posted. So we'll start with opening prayers officially, make a couple comments, and today I wanted to get into the idea of karma, vasana, purushartha, and prarabdha. Because we need to today define the framework of what Shastras talk about, and then we can get into the next couple chapters right after these 4 personalities, and then we can understand Puja Gurudev's intention behind the way he's phrased and making points. Until the definitions are not clear, we're going to be going around in circles when trying to read. So let's start with Om Sahana Bhavatu and Guru Brahma, and then I'll dive into it. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Gurudeva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So as we were talking about, with the 4 personalities, and that spiritual personality, again, I want to clarify, is still the intellect in this case that is well educated and aware of what the Shastra's guidelines are. So now when we apply it to that first question that we had of, someone offers me sweets in the most arrogant kind of way. They like fling the dish at me saying, take whatever the heck you want. So in that, suddenly there's like a bunch of reactions that happen in our mind. Physically, there's a dual, a difference. I'm taken aback because of the person, but at the same time, my mouth is watering because it's actually pretty good. So body has its own physical reactions. Emotionally, oh, I would have loved a sweet, but what the heck is this person? Suddenly this anger, fear, we're talking strictly emotions, not even a thought process. What is our gut reaction that happens? There's this appall. There's this fear of okay, where is this coming from? Why are they being so arrogant to me? Then you have the intellect saying, how dare you? Who do you think you are to give me sweets in this manner? What have I done with you? This is wrong. So the difference between an emotion and the intellect is that the intellect makes decisions. It's more decisive in nature, whereas the contemplating dilemmas, wishy-washiness, this or that kind of malleable state is when we say the thoughts are in the mind state. So again, that also, emotionally, I have a lot of reactions. Intellectually, I'm like, this is wrong. Then spiritually, what happens, again, this is still an intellect that is informed by the Shastras. It will say, okay, listen, my ego should not have pride. I need to be samatvam at all times. What comes, comes. What goes, goes. I should be detached. Second thing, when it comes to that sweet, listen, control the senses. Don't pursue the extrovertedness through the senses and crave after sweets. But at the same time, mouth is craving for it. Mind really wants it. Intellect says no. Spirituality says no. So now there's differences of opinion with all 4 personalities. And when all 4 are talking to us, we are confused. We don't know what to follow. Depending on the day, depending on the mood, one or the other will outwin each other. and my reactions change. So this, so the question was, doesn't the relationship also influence the decision? Who's making that analysis? Emotions. What if it was my own mother that, threw it at me? Okay, my approach will be different. Why is she like this? If it's a colleague, how dare you? But it's still the mind and the intellect doing the analysis and assessing. Then one makes one overrides the decisions of the others. When I'm forced to act, somehow I'll pick one of the 4 personalities to follow and I'll end up doing it. But the point of analysis is all 4 are not on the same page. That's the real point Puja Gurudev is trying to point out in this section. At any given moment, when we are stressed, confused, feel disharmony, it's because these 4 personalities are not in alignment, they're not integrated. So yes, the circumstances can change, the variations can change, and the mind, intellect, body, and spirituality all will react differently to it. But that difference is the main point that's here. So then, we have to now start thinking about, how do I start integrating all of them? How do I start integrating? Because that's where real peaceful quietude and happiness will come out, when I'm not crazy. So now we look at the body and spirituality. I'm taking the 2 extremes on the side. Body will have its reactions. In fact, all of us have the same set of organs, give or take. I mean, yeah, I know there are different variations, but functionality, the very nature of the senses are all the same across the board. The eyes see, the nose smells, we taste, and physiology will do its thing. There's nothing I can do about it. It's just the way it is. Spirituality also is set in stone because Shastras have a consistent message. When I have Shraddha, there's no debating with Shastras. That is my guidelines. It has set in stone where the journey is and what I'm reaching for. All of it's set in stone. So there's no variations between these 2. Where does the real conflict happen? Mind and intellect, wishy-washy. Either the emotions override and I can't make objective decisions, or I make an objective decision, but my emotions feel like they're left behind and unlistened, and I start suppressing emotions, and there's a constant conflict between the 2. So then what was the last question on the board again? Yes, thank you. Shreyas and Preyas. We defined last class that Shreyas is the path of good, and Preyas is the path of pleasant. So when the mind overrides and we become very emotional and give in to the desires that are there, which path am I following? Pleasant, praise. But when the intellect stands by the Shastras and looks for the long-term good, is able to manage and not be succumbed by the emotions, which path are we walking now? The other one, Shreyas, right? So now, when the adherence to Shreyas is there, the confusion gets very much minimized. So let's hit pause on this line of thinking. I need to today take a tangent into the topic of the relationship between vasana, desires, karma, and in that we will start to see the vocabulary of purushartha and prarabdha. So today, I know we might not find all the same concepts in the book of Kindle Life or Art of Living right now, but we're about to do some analysis on all of this. So let's define those. Let me set up the framework, and with this in mind, we can continue studying the rest of the chapters, okay? So I have a lot to pack in. This may take 40 minutes, but I'm gonna try. I have about 35 minutes right now. If at any point, so if you don't mind, I will not take any questions so that the logic can keep going. I have noticed that last couple times I've done this, I've somehow managed to answer those questions along the way, so hopefully I will do that. And then there's a video I will share with all the teachers afterwards by Puja Gurudev that reiterates the concepts we learned today. So that's the game plan. So Puja Gurudev, he starts off by giving us a flowchart of the way we function normally. we start with vasanas. Then those vasanas are very subtle within us. It's the accumulation of impressions that are there. Some of them get triggered and they become a little bit stronger, they become a little bit more tangible. Then we see them as desires. Once the desire grows even more stronger, what does the mind tend to do? Starts planning. So we'll say thoughts, but really these are plans. And finally, when the plans have really come to a fructification, we're almost tipping into the next physical form of actually then taking action. Right? So this is subtle, and this is gross. Right? Now, what's the catch-22 about this cycle? Simple question. Does actions terminate desires? Upon acting, does it fulfill the desire and we're done? Definitely not. By experience, I can tell you definitely not. But after an action is done, so clearly the answer is no. But there are two categories that we look at after an action is performed. Either they are krodha or lobha. Kama, krodha, lobha, matsarya, and then etc., right? But those are the extensions of these two. Desires, aka kama. So this is the three that we see here. Kama, krodha, lobha. And how are they connected? If kama is obstructed, either that the plan I made really sucked and didn't actually work, so again, that didn't work, or someone else got in my way and stopped me from executing my plans, or someone else had a better plan and they got the result before I got there. Competitiveness. Whatever form that obstruction takes, my experience is anger. It can start off as annoyance, frustration, boil to proper anger, or it can even cross the line of adharma and become violence, stealing, cheating. We can go to that extreme. When krodha is experienced, what does it do to our desires? I have to get it now. How dare you stop me? It becomes even more stronger. So this is the first kind of feedback loop that we see. Now the other side is lobha. How do we translate lobha? Greed. Okay, I'm not a greedy person. I know where the lines are. I can't be that bad. But here we're extending the principle of greed as if I was able to execute my plan, and I got what I wanted, what's my experience after that? I want more. Why? Because samsara's trait, or as Pujya Gurudev puts it, the Einsteinian world of time and space. And what's Einstein's most famous quote here? The only permanent principle of the world is change itself. Nothing lasts. And if nothing lasts, then whatever I gained through action, eventually it will go away. And now it's gone. What's my natural reaction to that then? I want it again. I want it more. I want it again. So the funniest example I take about this, you may have heard this from me before, but does anyone know what the logo is on the motto of the Starbucks coffee cup? Next time you go, check. But I'll give you a hint. Just like the first sip. Meaning, I have desire for coffee. Boiled, I have to go to get a Starbucks. I'll go sign up for their reward so I can cheapen the amount of money I spend at Starbucks. I have to have it. There's no other coffee that seems to be as sweet as what they do. Finally, you go, you get the cup, you are holding it in your hand, you take the first sip. Now, if actions terminated there, I should be able to put that cup down. Instead, what do I do at Starbucks? I order a venti cup. Because every sip after that first one is trying to repeat my experience of just like that first sip. But is it the same experience? There's a diminishing ROI, return of investment. It declines over time, and I constantly struggle to keep getting more. So, krodha and lobha. So now, what does lobha do to desires? Amplify it. This is a cycle we get stuck in all the time. Desires, plans, actions, krodha or lobha, but both feed back into desire to amplify it again. So when this cycle is done again and again and again, these impressions are left behind as vasanas. And it almost feels that we are helpless to them. Even if I wanted to grow up, these desires are just too strong. I don't know what to do with it. I feel helpless to it. And it's almost like we are no better than animals. And I'm sure you've heard me say this in this class before, like animal man. We are animal man and must graduate to man, and then finally we'll attain Superman. But in this case, when we say the word, we are animal man, meaning we are constantly stuck purely by the instincts of our desires, and we live no better than them. So just like animals are dictated by their instincts, if we behave that way, we are the same, just like an animal. But what sets a human being apart? HB is human being. What sets us apart? This crowning jewel ability called the intellect. So we are unique because we have an intellect. Now, this is a very specific usage of the word. Intellect is not necessarily the same as intelligence. Even a dog or a dolphin or one of these exotic birds are highly intelligent. Pack dynamics or designing, floating nests, they're very good. Intelligence is not the idea here. Puja Gurudev gives a specific definition of what this special ability that human beings have. It is the ability to choose actions regardless of vasanas. A very specific definition. The thing that sets us apart from all other animals is the fact that we have the ability to make choices outside the cycle. How does that work? Let's take a couple examples. Can a lion take renunciation? Seems really ridiculous, right? Even if one of the chicks gave me a really good argument. They're like, yeah, but what about dolphins that get trained? Like they act differently than what they would do in the wild. But really, if you think about it, human beings have harnessed their instincts to make them do what we want. But that dolphin is living nothing but its instincts. What do I mean by that? The drive for a dolphin is survival. They will hunt and eat, and they will do whatever is required to attain that food. They're intelligent. They'll figure things out, but at the end of the day, what's the drive? To get food. So what has human beings done in that case? They have designed the environment in such a way that they become the sole provider of food. And in order to get that food, the dolphin has to behave according to the instructions that's given by the human beings. So the instinct hasn't changed. Just how it's being done, we have made use of that. Whereas for a human being, we have the ability to fast. There's no survival instincts within us. We can easily choose during every full moon day, I'm going to do a vrata. I will choose not to eat. We have the ability to override our instincts. In fact, that's why vratas are so hard. We have this need to eat. But we have the capacity to do it So the ability to choose actions regardless of what my vasanas are, regardless of what my instincts are. Okay, so now that that's established, now let's look at the law of karma. Law of karma. Now, you know how in math class, you have to make a statement and we hold that as true, and then we do a whole bunch of analysis and then come around to see the value of that statement? We're going to have to do a similar analysis like that. I will put a definition on the board, and this is what we're going to explore. The statement is, okay, we are the products of our past actions. Of our past actions. This is a statement. Let's hold this as true. Now let's break this down and analyze this. First is products. Another synonyms that get connected to this idea. Product means effects. Therefore, past actions is cause. So far, so good? Past actions equals results. Past action is a cause, results is effects. Another way of looking at it is life circumstances and choices. This, now it's getting a little bit more subtle. We may not completely believe this, but this is where our analysis will go forward. When I make a choice, it leads to certain circumstances I encounter. If I choose to go left on the road, I'm encountered with a different route. If I choose to go right on the road, I'm now going down a different journey. So with choices then comes life circumstances. In other words, now I will throw in the two famous Sanskritam words here. This is prarabdha, and this is purushartha. Purushartha. So, purusha artha, meaning the efforts or choices by the man, purusha, meaning the individual. Prarabdha is the result. Now, it's kind of like, don't we use this word a lot in our own just daily usage? Yo, my prarabdha, karma. My mom used to say that quite a bit, you know. This is my prarabdha, what am I supposed to do? Now, if you were to present these two vocabularies to our students, what is the most popular translations of these two words? And the biggest debate you get into in high school classrooms? Not cause and effect. Purushartha and prarabdha, how do they translate that? Destiny is a good word here. That's what I was looking for. You're close. There's a specific phrase they use for purushartha. Destiny, huh? So I'm going to take the first word and your word and put it together. Free will. Free will. Now, there's a problem in this kind of definition. How do the kids normally define destiny? It is pre-written. It's like my life is like a book that has already been written before I was even born. You know the beginning, the middle, the end, and every choice is already made. Then a whole bunch of questions will come up that don't have answers. Who wrote the book? Why did he write the book? Why did he write the plot line in such a way that it goes through these series of events? There's a series called Series of Unfortunate Events. It's an actual novel. So why those specific unfortunate events? Why is it that you have a different book and I have a different book? Why do you get that book and why do I get this book? Where is my choice in all of this? What's the use of making choice? Why should there be ethics and morality? See how far that problem, the implications of just destiny causes. Okay, this is not satisfactory. It's incomplete. What about free will? Let's forget destiny. Every choice is under my control. I get to choose everything. I dictate how I live my life. Everything is in my control. Is that true? if this is my modus operandi, right? This is the way I live. I have desires, therefore I act. And free will is the only thing I have. Would I ever experience anything I didn't want? Would I ever experience anything that I didn't want? Because if it's only free will, only the desires that I have, then everything is under my control, then the actions I perform must give me what I wanted. Is that true? Is that my experience? No. I will put in hard work and still not get the salary I want. I will see others not putting in work and they get what I wanted. Nothing is guaranteed. So free will alone is incomplete as well. Therefore, we have to see the relationship. That is why I no longer want to use the word destiny and free will when it comes to the translation of prarabdha and purushartha. I'm going to stop using those words because it carries those connotations when I use those English words. Prarabdha and purushartha is completely different. It's a different framework of analysis. So in our classrooms, let's continue using the Sanskritam word. Let's stop translating it. Let the lessons and usage of the word become its explanation. Just like how we can say Bhagavan and keep using that word, kids will figure out what that word means because of usage. Same way, let's do the same thing with prarabdha and purushartha. But for us as teachers to really understand the concept, let's actually look at what the framework is behind these two words. Now, there's one more element we need to see when it comes to cause and effect. Cause and effect. One factor we have to think about is time. Time. So the example is I have a coconut, an apple, and a mango. And these are just arbitrary numbers right now. Let's say I have seeds for each of these plants. I plant them in the same field under the same conditions. How long will it take for each of these to become full mature trees? Each one has its own timeline, right? Coconut would be the fastest, so 1 year. I'm guessing mango 2 years and apple 5 years. Again, these are not facts, it's just to demonstrate. Everything else is the same, but there's a delay in time. So in the same way, my past actions and my results will have a time factor in there. There are some actions that I perform, I will reap the consequences right away. I stub my toe on this whiteboard, my foot hurts right away, in instant. Or another example where we study for the medical field. How many years? Like 8, 10, 14 years? Undergrad, grad, residency, specializations, examinations. I put in all this work. Do I become a doctor right away? Like not within the years. I have to finish them, then get established. It's after that I'm like 40, 45 that I actually reap the results of all of my hard work. Time delay. Now, what stops us from applying this concept past this life? Rebirth is the one unique feature about Sanatana Dharma that we account for. Saying results can take longer than one lifetime. In fact, it is the results that define my next lifetime. So now we have said time can be infinite. We are accounting for that scenario as well. So time, infinite. Now, one more. So we have to hold some of these concepts, right? So this is, first is cause and effect relationship is principle 1. Then time factor is principle 2, right? So I'll say T to infinity equals rebirth. This really does feel like a math class. Now, one more factor is when we talk about prarabdha, it falls under a bigger framework, and it comes in Tattva Bodha, that karma, or aka agami, leads to sanchita, then leads to prarabdha, and that prarabdha then connects back to agami. Okay, these are 3 new words I've introduced. This is analysis of karma in terms of its results. I do an action and I analyze all that can come, and because of that analysis, I've put them in categories. So what does each of these words mean? As soon as I've performed an action, the cause has been triggered. So those things that have just been triggered, I'm calling them as agami. Now the results of it don't necessarily come right away. There's some delay. So while it's brewing, right, it's in dormant stage, I call it as sanchita. Then part of it that comes to fructify, that now takes a tangible form, is now called as prarabdha. Now, again, we just went through cause and effect. Once I've made my choice, it brews a little. Finally, the result fructifies. Result means I'm experiencing the effect, I'm experiencing my life circumstances. Now to that, I act again. So that's why it's a cycle. Okay, this is abstract. Let's try again with a couple of analogies just to reinforce the idea. And if you don't mind, I will take a few more minutes, 5 more minutes tops, and then wherever we end in this concept, I'll pick up again. But we're getting close to the end of this. One example that comes in Viveka Chudamani is that it's like using a bow and arrow. It's like using a bow and arrow. How does that work? When I perform an action, it's like drawing the bow. It requires effort to draw it back, and this is what I put in. Once I've drawn to full strength, I'm done. There's nothing more I can do. Only thing is, let it go. That stage is called as agami. Once it let goes, the arrow is now in mid-flight. It is in mid-flight. It hasn't yet reached the target yet. So mid-flight means it's in sanchita. Once it hits the target, it's done what the result of what my action was, has fructified. Hitting the target is like prarabdha. So that's one way of thinking about it. Now, this second analogy to reinforce these ideas is my own, so there might be fallacies in the example, but bear with me. I thought about, the metal balls that are hanging by a string, and it's like a pendulum effect. You pull one, and it like swings back and forth like this. That's my analogy. So let's break that motion into bits and pieces and connect it back to this idea. So give me 2 minutes. I got to draw this out so we can see this clearly. So you have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this step is 1, which is karma, this agami karma. Then I let go. 1, 2, 3, and that 4th one comes out. Well, let me just do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. That momentum is traveling between these balls, but there's no actual movement happening. They're all still, but there's energy somewhere in there. It's not like before I lifted it and after lifting it, there is a difference, even though physically I can't see the difference. This would be sanchita. Sanchita. Action has been performed, but we don't see the results yet. Just like there's a gap between year 1 and year 3. What's happening in year 2? Sanchita. It's brewing. There's still potential energy in there. Then, finally, you have 1, 2, 3. This swings out, and it comes back in. There's momentum, and I finally see the results of that action, and it comes right back at me. What happens? I receive that reaction. This first one swings out again. Right? So if I were to take this analogy, this side is me. This side is my life circumstances. So it's a constant swing between my actions and my results. That is why we come back to, we are the products of our past actions. Now, when it swings back, it causes me to do things again. It's like vasanas coming back and triggering me to do it again. So this would be the cycle of agami, sanchita, and prarabdha, taking into account time taking into account cause and effect, and taking into account the loop that we get stuck in. What is one concept we talked about that's not yet accounted for? Intellect. Where does this fall in all of this? Right here, between 1 and 2. These two scenarios, this one and this one, is pretty much the same, right? Pretty much the same. My intellect stops this feedback loop here. My intellect makes me choose how I respond. What was the definition? The ability to choose actions regardless of my vasanas. Life comes at me. I can allow myself to go back into the cycle or choose differently. That is the one ability I have as a human being. Therefore, and one idea to clarify this is like a cow that is tied up. So down here, so this is a cow, right? And it's tied. Because of the length of the rope, I can't cross this field. I can't go outside the length of that rope. I'm stuck. So here, I cannot control sanchita or prarabdha. It's out of my control. But within this field, I can choose to wander wherever I want. Here, this is my karma. Now, one thing to think about this, when it's traveling in sanchita and prarabdha is coming back, I am not in control of that. Bhagwan is the one that maintains the order of life. It's kind of like gravity, right? I can accidentally step off the ledge and trip and stumble and hurt myself, or I can be intelligent and become like a skateboarder that intentionally rolls off the edge, enjoys the trip, does tricks, and then come back. Principle of gravity is ever present. It affects me and it affects the skater. Why is it that we experience two different kinds of experience at the end? I was unintelligent in dealing with the field of gravity. He was intelligent in dealing with the field of gravity. Sanchita and prarabdha, I cannot change. What is the one thing under my control? Choice of action. So let me become intelligent in what choices I make, because the field of the world and mechanics of the world, Bhagwan takes care of. The law is there. He's not biased. He's not like Zeus that like, oh, you stumbled, I'm going to make you feel pain. Oh, you're a skater, let me make you enjoy. He doesn't make anything happen. He is laws that is ever present. It's how I choose to interact with him. So Bhagwan and Ishvara is out here. I can't control him. But what is within my control? The choices I make and the actions I perform. So this is a simple framework to understand. Now can we see that destiny and free will are short? They don't take into account everything. At the same time, I have no right to complain, Ayo, this is my prarabdha, I can't do anything. In here, you have very much the responsibility to make right choices. Out here, no. So it takes into account both what is happening to me, but at the same time doesn't excuse me from making choices. So this is a holistic framework for understanding the relationship between karma and phala and the loop that we get stuck in. I will leave one last question for you here. How does Shreyas and Preyas guide this ability? How does Shreyas and Preyas guide this ability? Think more abstractly. If I make Shreyas choices, how does it affect the pendulum? If I make Shreyas choices, how does it affect the pendulum? And think of examples. Things of Shreyas choices I've made, what happened, why it happened. Think of examples. If I make Preyas choices, how does it affect the pendulum? And use examples again. So it's now application. We will see more of this in the next couple chapters. Puja Gurudev uses the words the chapter is called Law of Karma, but he takes a further analysis, and we'll see that next week. So with that, thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. We'll do our closing prayers. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you so much.